I love Halo. I love Halo's story, its multiplayer, and I love the creativity of its community. But Halo 4 is the most annoying thing since my ex. But while I can block her number to stop her from texting me at 2 a.m. about how great of a couple we supposedly were, there's nothing I can do to stop Halo 4 from being the fourth mainline Halo game. Its story, in 2 words,
was a colossal failure.
This game was the turning point for the franchise. I'm reviewing Halo 4 because I want the Halo community to strengthen. I want Halo's future to be bright. But in order for the future to become bright, we have to finally be willing to admit just how dark things became in the not-so-distant past. This isn't going to be like most reviews. For starters, I'm about to show off never-before-seen data about the entire Halo franchise. You want charts? You want analysis? You just want to understand why Halo 4's story feels so off. I'll do my best to lay it all on the table. We're about to swamp through both Halo 4's major issues and the smaller details that most players were too busy pressing buttons to notice. Bungie handed total control of the Halo brand to 343 Industries in 2012, and the challenge of an inexperienced company being given one of the world's most successful video game franchises is not lost on me. But 343 also had a massive opportunity here to prove themselves. An opportunity to win over an enormous audience that was almost universally giving them a chance. Now, in terms of story, Halo 4 is not the worst game I've ever played. It's not even the worst Halo game I've ever played. But it was the biggest letdown. It was inconsistent, poorly thought out, and about as spellbinding as Phantom Pistols on Waterworks. If you think this story is a million times better than earlier Halos, you should be warned that my portrayal of the facts is about to shatter your world. Kind of like how Halo 4 shattered the Halo fanbase, to the contrary of those who show their obliviousness by saying things like, "If you really think Halo 4 was complete garbage, you're either just trolling or seriously jaded. I don't know why people hate on 343 and Halo 4 that much. People ripping on 343 and Halo 4 are doing so because it's fashionable and trendy." Or maybe people rip on Halo 4 because they didn't enjoy it. And maybe it doesn't help that this story is flawed, fundamentally. So, where did Halo 4 go wrong? Well, the answer stretches across everything from gaping oversights in cinematography, to self-contradictory logic, to middle school level dialogue, to leaving pivotal plot points woefully unexplained, to characters who fail to act in their own best interest. Add to all of this a backdrop of bizarre sound implementation and pedestrian multiplayer, and you're left to wonder whether the executives at 343 Industries met in an ivory tower in Kirkland in the late 2000s and agreed that their new company's mission statement should be,
"We have to destroy Halo."
People who desperately try to defend Halo 4's story tend to adhere to one of 2 main related arguments. Either, number 1, look at how deep and emotional the story is, or number 2, the characters are depicted amazingly well. If a year after first watching the series you can only remember one thing from it, I would want you to remember just how shallow and meritless these 2 arguments are. Alright, let's get into Halo 4.
We're going in. Get tactical, Marines!
Before thrusting into our chronological investigation of this story, we have to talk about Halo 4's single greatest flaw. And that is, of course, the treatment of the Master Chief character. No, I'm not talking about his magical armor makeover, crazy as that was. I'm talking about him. Master Chief in the original Halo trilogy is such a cool character. He's not just a BA super soldier. He's decisive. He's confident. He does things on his own terms. Chief is, in Bungie's words, the consummate professional. He does his job, walks off,
doesn't even get the girl. He's that cool. He doesn't need her.
What this comes down to is that Chief is an alpha male. He only speaks when he decides to. He is a man of few words, but powerful words. Here are a few perfect examples of who Chief is. Number 1. With their cruiser being shot down and doomed to crash, Chief and a group of Marines are fleeing in a lifeboat toward an unknown alien world. As they're desperately hoping to survive and somehow make it back to Earth, one Marine voices his terror. Remember what Chief says in response.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir? I don't want to die out here.
Nothing. Because Chief's action of putting a hand on the man's shoulder is more meaningful than rambling words would be. Number 2. When a Covenant assault carrier is vulnerable during the Battle of Earth, Commander Miranda Keyes requests permission to attack it with her frigate. She is denied. Chief, on the other hand, is confident that he can do what a UNSC warship cannot.
I'm in position and ready for immediate assault.
Negative, Commander. Not against a ship that size. Not on your own.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
That is some high-status behavior. And number 3. When the galaxy-devouring flood arrives at Earth, Chief gets right to the point and conveys just how much trouble humanity is in.
What is it? More brutes?
Worse.
This is the only word he says in this entire mission. A man of few words indeed. Unfortunately, this character is not who you play as in Halo 4. On an objective level, our main character has been sawed apart, twisted, remolded, hammered. Halo 4 changed him into a character full of awkward quips and boring exposition. For example,
You've been busy. I guess we got their attention. Asking's not my strong suit. It's a long story, but I know what the Didact's after. Something tells me that's only because the Didact
Dr. Tilson,
wanted it.
are you there?
Halsey. That scan is sounds like the Covenant were here looking for something.
He's powering it up.
Find Halsey. That can't be a coincidence. That can't be right. The beacon was pulled into Requiem with
didn't
the
just
ship
get back
sent
to
to say
Earth
we still
and
have
find
weapon
Halsey.
systems online.
No,
She could just be a
trap.
trap. I don't suppose you
What?
have
Doctor,
planned
listen
for
to
that.
me.
I won't say anything. On occasion.
I know some 343 loyalists will argue that the changes were gradual and totally within character. So,
would you like to see the relevant data?
I'm about to show you a vast amount of data covering all of Chief's dialogue across the first 4 games. What these stats reveal is an even bigger behavior transformation than I had actually expected. Chief speaks only 29 lines of dialogue on average per game in Halos 1 through 3. 29 carefully chosen lines. Those lines are memorable and probably jump out at you just like they do to me. In Halo 4, Master Chief's dialogue increases by a modest 800% up to 237 lines in one game. Yes, the change was 800%, not exactly gradual. You tell me which one of these isn't like the others. Here's a piece of storytelling advice, no, life advice for you all. Speaking too much weakens what you say. But let's not focus only on how many lines Chief says. Let's also examine the number of words spoken. Master Chief says 1,000 more words in Halo 4 than he does in Halos 1 through 3. Combined. Hey, 343, more words does not equal a better character. Look at all these pointless words. And look at how many words he says per mission. He just says things that aren't necessary. Things that aren't the professional level of communication his character used to stand for. Which of the following lines of dialogue do you think are more memorable?
Just one question. What if you miss?
I won't.
So what's your plan?
Infinity's tracked the Didact's vessel to a docking structure southeast of here. Punch it. We're proceeding to insertion.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
She stayed behind. Cortana, please. Wait.
I don't know why 343's writers transformed Master Chief, especially since they seem to be aware of what made his character great. Here's Halo 4 creative director Josh Holmes shortly before Halo 4 launched.
He is a man of few words, so he's not going to suddenly change in that regard.
And here's franchise development director Frank O'Connor.
In terms of overall script, he's really not saying many more lines than he has in the prior games.
He is a man of few words, so he's not going to suddenly change. He's not going to suddenly change. He's not going to suddenly change.
He's really not saying many more lines than he has in the prior games. He's really not saying many more lines. He's really not saying many more lines.
Frankie? Josh? Did you play Halo 4 before you went on its marketing tour? Are you lying, or just completely unaware about the game you're promoting? This sudden change demonstrates a lack of restraint on 343's part. If they wanted a deep story that evolved Chief's character, he should shift as the story progresses into a character forced to speak up more. This kind of shift would make him a dynamic character. Instead, he's left to be a static, unchanging character, but he's not the same static character he was in the past 3 Halos. 343 thought they were writing a story where Master Chief grows. But the only growth that happens takes place between games. Right here, when Chief is asleep. You can't call it character development when Master Chief just begins the new narrative by behaving differently. He shouldn't start off reciting more lines of dialogue in the first mission of Halo 4 than he said in all of Halo 2. Or, if you guys at 343 wanted a story about a talkative soldier, create a game centered around someone else. It's a big universe. It was disrespectful to mash Chief's character into a different mold and force him to behave not how Chief would behave, but how 343 wanted their main character to behave. 11 years of precedent left to die. Master Chief goes entire missions in each of the first 3 Halos without saying a word. 0 words. In Halo 4, his minimum words spoken in a mission is 94. To sum up, 343 made the Halo franchise's main character, who was known for being selective with his words, into an awkward, low-status, chatty shell of his former self. And they did it instantly. Let this be a lesson that when you botch your own main character, your story is going to suffer. Bearing in mind this foundational change that 343 planted in the Halo formula, let's step into a chronological look at the Halo 4 narrative. Spoiler alert, we won't be finding much of these.